very straightforward. There aren't many branches in this whole line. It's just one line. White is totally forced in pretty much all of his moves. So Magnus can work this out to the very end, especially since he left us and he got more time on the clock.
He got more time on the clock, right? He left us. He made time control. He was visiting in studio if you missed it. Big shout out to Magnus for showing up and sharing his thoughts.
I think maybe my instinct would be to work out f6 to the end because it's a more straight line, while the queen against the rook and pawn, it's a bit difficult to fully work it out. This one is just, pawns are pushing.
Maybe simplest is even you just go here first.
This might be the simplest,
just like eliminate.
A7, G3.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you force.
Those pawns will be a full queen. They will not only promote, they will also take white's rook while doing so. This one is looks very clinical.
A good lesson in the end of these rook endings, recognizing that these two pawns will outplay the rook. A sad story for a rook who can't stop two connected pass pawns. Magnus is thinking, though, taking his time, ensuring he chooses the most accurate line. He was nervous before when Jan shocked him with the move 23G3. But okay, no. He's played rook takes C3, so he will invite the queen versus rook ending should king takes B6 be next.
You can also play F6 after that, right? You have to calculate it.
But you lose a tempo, no?
You lose a tempo, which could be actually
F6, rook to H1 happens. Rook to C2, A5, G5.
Okay, so wait, F6.
Yeah, black is not in time there.
Rook to H1, rook C2. Yeah,
J5, it's a draw suddenly.
Yep.
The eval bar reveals all, because in this position you can't play both G3 and rook A7 at the same time.
Right, rook A2, rook takes H2, and all of a sudden,
now who's winning?
Yeah.
Hello.
So rook B3 check is played, and he's gonna win this position. But it really gives white some hope.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because obviously this is headed toward what now feels inevitable, but ironically, of all of Magnus's wins, the clinching game for the title may ultimately prove his most inaccurate game, just because he had so many ways to win, and this became a bit wild here toward the end.
Yeah, from one point of view, yeah, he didn't clean it up.
I know it's irrelevant. Yeah.
On the other hand, it doesn't seem like he's ever let the win slip in this game.
Yes.
Agreed. Of course, it's better to win in 2 moves rather than in, well, however many moves we've already been like 30 moves from
when he could have played the rook d6 idea,
or like 25 moves from when he could have played e takes f2 and rook to d6. But if you never let the win slip, it's not advisable to prolong winning games. But if it wins, it wins.
Winning is winning, as Vin Diesel would say, whether it's by an inch or a mile.
Not just Vin Diesel. Also, who was it?
Who are we quoting? Charlie Sheen here?
Charlie Sheen.
Okay, hashtag winning.
Yeah, never good to quote Charlie Sheen.
Never good to quote Charlie Sheen on these shows. But hey, you're new. You'll figure that out.
Does he still count as new? He's been here for weeks.
I was gonna say he's definitely we've worked him in. I'd say we got you a gift or something for your first time, but we didn't. So.
It's okay. I didn't expect anything.
Okay. Well, this has been a wild ride, as we've said, and the 2021 FIDE World Chess Championship is moments away from crowning the defending champion Magnus Carlsen, who once again joins us in studio here. We do have guests joining us at the top of the show. We will have a post-game show as always, so shout out to Grandmaster Wesley So, who is around the corner, and Jan Ludvig Hammer from Norway. Of course, you'll want to hear Hammer's thoughts, given the perspective of all the Norwegian fans who are watching their man Magnus Carlsen get the job done once again. So stay tuned. We also are premiering another episode, maybe 2 episodes still, of Chess: A Reflection of Us, which is a documentary we've been premiering throughout the entire event, and we hope that you stick around to see those episodes.
I like the move queen e4 because it threatens queen e6 check, winning the rook on b3. So a6 cannot be played because of that check, and it centralizes the queen. And now white needs to make a choice. You don't want to move your king back to a square like b5 because then you're walking away from helping that pawn forward. And then black can start playing f6 and g5. So queen e4 is a nice move. There's no rook a3 either because queen b4 check can be played, picking up the rook there. And I guess that means you kind of have to play a move like king to b5. Just
You have
not
to
a
play
move you
king
wanna
b5, yeah. And your king will continue to get forced back because after queen to b7 or queen to d5, it continues to go backwards. And at some point, with the king not supporting the pawn, that pawn won't be able to advance, so black can start his...
Whoa.
King to a7 makes sense as well, but
Yeah, but now on check.
after queen to d5, though, he needs to give a check. So queen to d5 wins some pawns, for sure.
Queen d5 forces rook b8 check, and after king to g7.
a6, queen c5.
Yeah, you can't defend every pawn.
But, yeah, I mean, if you get the pawn to a7 with the rook on b8, black cannot win.
Yeah.
There's no way to win. So he probably shouldn't allow
I
that
thought the
pawn.
move would just be queen e7 check here first.
Yeah, and then I guess, can the king go to a8?
He does
And
indeed play queen e7.
You're trying to trick you, right? Because king b8 is queen d8 check.
Yeah.
But king a8, queen d8 check is a very, very bad
Like,
move.
what's going on? What do you mean?
Whoop, rook b8. So king 8 is in fact played. And where is the win? It feels like it should be very easy now.
It's never. Well, there's king g7 because then after a6 you have queen to e6, and if the rook is forced behind the pawn, then it will get picked up. Queen e8. So maybe king g7 is a nice move here. It stops that pawn from going forward, and white doesn't have any other very
Yeah,
good
king
looking
g7
move.
is super nice. It also renews the threat of queen to d8.
Yeah.
I think king g7 actually is it. Yeah.
It's funny because you want to just move the queen somewhere. You're like, I should win the pawn. I would give a check and hit the rook. But king g7, as Fabiana points out, that after a6, there's a big problem for white because then there's queen e6, right? So you're just can't protect the pawn on a6, and if you lose that pawn, the game's over.
Yeah, let's see that on the board because it could happen. King g7, a6.
Queen e6, and you can't go to a3.
Yeah, if you go to
Queen
a3,
check.
queen e8, queen e7 wins the rook. So if you can't play a6, what exactly do you do? You can maybe play rook to b8, just because you have to stop queen d8 winning that a pawn.
Now you give check first, even.
Yeah, rook to b7.
Rook b7.
And this is the exact type of position that Jan's like
Can
hoping
I play,
works
Can I
out.
just play this now?
Yeah, that
Force rook
that
a7.
forces super awkward rook a7, and now queen to e8 and queen takes e3, taking the pawn under the best possible circumstances. The other thing is that even if, let's say a6, queen f4, even if somehow white were able to get the queen for the pawn, black's two pawns might win against the rook alone, because two pawns sometimes just beat the rook.
By the way, king g7 has been played.
Nice, accurate move. What does it say, mate in 26?
Oh, wow, the eval bar just announced mate in 26. Shout out to you, Stockfish 14.1. Always doing your job. You know, no one's appreciating you in the background, calculating, working hard, keeping that eval bar going. A thankless task.
Of course.
Stockfish 14.1.
Of course, we all see the mate in 26, right, Danny?
I for sure see the mate in 26. For those that are visual learners, we could show it.
Don't be so bashful.
If you want. Bobby, what would that be like?
Okay, let's make 26 moves that ends in mate somehow.
Okay, rook b6, but that doesn't even threaten a6.
Let's start with queen c5 as the mate in 26.
Wait, I think you should just take the pawn.
I like queen c5. You just put the rook in front of the pawn. The pawn can't advance like that. And
Oh, you queen c8, right? This is actually kind
Oh, he did play queen c5. He liked your move, Bobby.
Yeah, king here, queen c7, king a8.
Oh, wow, look at this.
don't play f6.
Don't play him.
Don't do
Wait,
that.
wait a second. We have a
Oh.
resignation. We have history. Magnus Carlsen is now the 5-time.
Sorry?
I mean, okay, I just understand, like, you take f2 check first, and then she, no queen g4 first. Yeah, how to do that. But in general, if I just take on d4, it should be closer to equality. Yeah, I guess. Maybe now knight goes to f5.
What do you mean?
I mean, okay, rook d4, just, I mean, maybe rook d4 immediately or something.
Yeah, takes knight f5.
Maybe it shouldn't take, maybe we should start with g6. Because takes knight f5 could be slightly, I don't know, rook e5. I mean,
So I go c6 rook e.
no, but then rook e5 at some point, so at least I'm improving the structure. Yeah, but in general, yeah, there's not much.